One of the greatest joys of Parks on the Air is being outdoors. And one of the biggest challenges of Parks on the Air can be being outdoors. Don't stay home when it's wet. Just bring the indoors, outdoors, put up a hooch. I'll show you how. This is my indoors, what I call my POTA Hooch. All fits in one bag. One of my requirements is that things fit in a bag, things fit in a container, so I'm much less likely to leave them, either forget them here at the park or forget them at home. It is, the kit comes with a tarp. Here's a bag of ropes and some tent stakes. The bag of ropes has 4 guy lines, or tent lines, whatever you want to call them. There's 4. And at the core of the system is a rapid deployment Ridgeline. Now, I did not develop this. I stole this idea from a guy named Dave Canterbury at Self-Reliance Outfitters. You can find him on YouTube. He's got this, talks about this, and all kinds of other good videos. I don't know that he's connected this or anybody's connected this to radio, and that's how I use it. So this is 25 feet of paracord. It has 2 wooden toggles on here. One of them's made by 3/8" dowel, and one of them was made by a stick that I needed in a hurry. And it has 3, these prusik knots are friction knots. These prusik knots are friction knots, meaning they're adjustable till you put weight on them. When you put weight on them, they clench down on this rope. The Ridgeline is deployed like this. On one end, you've got a loop tied in the end of the line with a toggle. That loop, this loop end passes around the tree, and the toggle passes through this loop, and it just cinches down on the tree. On the other end, I pass the rope around the tree with the toggle, then put the toggle through this prusik knot, and it works as a rope tensioner. Then I use the 2 prusik knots in the middle to deploy my tarp. I run these prusik knots out of the way, and I'm gonna keep this toggle on this side and run this loop around the tree. I'm gonna do it down low so you can see it a little better. Just passes through this, just like that, and tightens up against the tree. I'll leave one of these here and bring these other 2 with me. There are 3 elements to tying this side off. I've got the prusik knot, which is going to be the anchor for this tensioner. I've got my toggle, and I've got my paracord. I'm going to bring the paracord and the toggle around the tree and pass it through this rope tensioner, through this prusik knot, just like this. I pass the toggle through the prusik knot and pull it tight. And then I pull it tight. I have 2 ends. I have this end, which is just the rope with the loop in the end of it, and then a toggle passed through that. I have 1 prusik for my tarp, one end of my tarp. I have the other prusik knot for the other end of my tarp. Then I have my rope tensioner with a toggle and a prusik knot. The prusik knots on either end are just loops. The sad thing about tarps is they all fail. And it doesn't matter how much money you spend on them. They either rip from misuse, they rip from getting battered in the wind, or they rip from dry rot from not being used enough. I don't recommend forming lasting relationships with your tarps. There's any number of ways you can deploy this tarp. I use what I call a mullet, which means it's short in the front but long in the back. And I just use a little toggle between these 2 loops. I've got a loop on my tarp and I have a loop on the prusik knot. Got it full tight right there. Just made it from a stick. I'll do the other side at the other end. I think you can maybe start to see where this is going now. Fingers are fumbly in the cold this morning. And I just pull the tension between these two ropes, and those prusik knots stay tight. So I'm going to have a little bit of bangs in the front, and then a longer tail in the back. I'm going to raise this to the height that I would normally set it at. So give me a second. This is my POTA Hooch. In the summertime, I'll run it up high, kind of like you see it here. I found that the more space I have above my head, the cooler it is inside of it. In the wintertime, I run it lower, closer to the ground. That keeps the wind out and the rain. So that's it. That's my POTA shanty. It keeps the weather off of me. I don't use it every time, but a little bit like a firearm. When you need it, you really need it.